Hey YouTube land, it's Taekwondo here doing another action figure review. Now this is for something I picked up. It's quite an old figure. Well, it's actually quite an old figure set. It was released during Star Wars Rogue One, but I never actually seen them over here. And I managed to pick one up from a seller on a kind of local, how would you say, kind of classified ad sort of website. So kind of like, was it Mercachi, is that how you pronounce it? And like Craigslist, that kind of stuff. And this is a Hoth Darth Vader Scout bike, biker Scout and speeder bike Hoth color set. So they did initially release this Scout biker and Scout bike on its own in the Endor color scheme, but I've never, as I said, never seen that one. But they have this version of it, which is the Hoth color scheme, and it's supposed to be a 12-inch figure set. So before I get onto the figures, which I'll just take out of the way for 2 seconds, I'll just have a brief talk about the packaging. So it comes in quite a large window box packaging. So you have the figures, the two figures are shown here, the Scout Trooper and Vader himself. The bike is all packaged in behind this side. It says assembly required, Darth Vader, and I flip around to the back of the box. It just has a brief kind of paragraph on each. So Darth Vader, an imposing figure standing 2 meters tall and encased in ominous black armor. Darth Vader is the emissary and enforcer of the Emperor's commands. Vader helped the Emperor carry out the elimination of the Jedi Order and the rise of the Galactic Empire. A Dark Lord of the Sith, he wields power of the dark side of the Force as well as a red-bladed lightsaber, and then that's repeated in several languages. And then for the Scout, it says, trained for more independence and adaptability than most Imperial troops, the Empire used Scout troopers for a range of missions, including reconnaissance, infiltration, a loyal service to Darth Vader. Scout troopers piloted speeder bikes on the Arctic terrain of Hoth, site of the Rebel Alliance Echo base. As far as I remember, I don't remember seeing any of them in the movie, but they did make figures for them, so there you go. I know they did a 3 3/4 inch 2-pack of Scout bikes, and even the large 80 Legacy Collection version comes with an Arctic version of the Scout biker. I do like the cover art. It is pretty much the figures. The only difference is in the background you can see a probe droid, but it is pretty much the figures themselves. So you have the bike, the Scout Troop, and Vader. Now these are essentially what is known as soap bottle figures, and what that is they're solid plastic sculpts. They don't have any soft good clothing or removable parts, and they are essentially, for the most part, 5 points of articulation figures. Vader, well, they're a little bit more, but I'll show off that in a second. So just bringing in the old tape measure, just get it height wise. You can see they're just around the 12-inch, a little bit under for the Scout biker. Just like 11 3/4 inches tall. The Vader, his head is very weird. It's very kind of crushed. I'm not sure if you can see it. It doesn't look like a regular Vader helmet. It looks very kind of reduced for some reason compared to the size of his body. He does have a soft goods cape. It's the only soft goods material about him. His inner cloak is part of the sculpt. And he does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of articulation. So we have his hands. You see the hollowness inside. They're pretty much hollow figures as well. So his arms can rotate all the way around. His wrists rotate, so you can do the grasping pose that's on the front of the box. His other wrist has the saber blade, or the saber hilt, molded into the hand, so it's non-removable, and it does rotate. This is separate to the figure when you get him. You have to pop that into place. I'm not sure if I can take it off once it's, yeah, so it just pegs in. His head does rotate, not much though, but it is on the swivel, and his legs can go forward, not much back, and you can go into a seated position. There's no knee, no ankle, no elbow, and no kind of all socket shoulder joints. They're just all swivels, so it's fairly basic. And then for the Scout Trooper, again, exact same thing. His head is on a ball joint, so you can get a little bit more range, tilt forward and back on it. Arms can rotate around, swivel in the wrist, which is handy for holding the grips on the bike. He has a removable pistol in a holster that he can fit into his right hand. His left hand is not designed to hold it. It doesn't have the grasp for the trigger to go through. And as his legs just go out. Now they do splay out a bit, which makes it a little bit easier for him to get on the bike. But the main part of this thing is the bike itself. So if I just move the figures out of the way, here is the bike. So assembly wise, there's quite a few bits. This piece, the handlebars, the bottom section, the gun, the mounts, the foot mounts, these white pieces on either side, the flap, and this piece at the bottom are all separate pieces, so it's fairly compact when you get it. It does have opening flaps, just like the vintage. The foot rests don't actually move, they just, once they're in kind of thing, they don't move up and down. So when it's landed, it's just pretty much flat on the ground. But for measurement, just see if I can angle my camera down a touch. So for measurement, it is around 18, just around 18 inches long in length, and height wise from the highest part, which would be the handlebars, it's just around 6. So just to give a look of him on the bike, so the way he sits on it, he doesn't actually even use the foot pegs or the footrests. There is pegs on the footrests and you can get his feet into them, but then he looks really awkward. But he can get his hands onto the thing, so you can get him riding it that way. But if you were to use the foot pegs, you have to stand them up a bit, and he can get his foot peg into it, and it just looks like he's really awkwardly flying a speeder bike. Now, just pop him off there for a second. So, here with me a moment. So he does have foot pegs on the front of his feet for him to peg into those, but he doesn't really need them. So for comparison, just going to move the speeder bike out of the way for a moment. This is a little bit dirty, he needs a good bit of a cleaning up. Here he is with the older Hasbro 12-inch. If I just move the camera. This is the older 12-inch Hasbro Scout Trooper, the one from the actual speeder bike set. So if I bring him in and do a measurement on him, you can see he's just over the 12-inch line mark, and you can see how chunky he is compared to the skinniness of the new one. And he was the one that came with these. Here is the vintage, is it Saga, I think, era speeder bike. Now, I just bring my camera up. You can see the speeder bike is quite big. And if I just bring the other one next to it and line it up tail to tail, you can see how short it stacks up compared to this one. The older Hasbro one is supposed to be more movie accurate, which is, and it has a lot more kind of pieces going on. There's like cabling, these are a lot more separate pieces. It still has cannon underneath, just like the other one, but it's way longer, and it actually has a soft goods, whereas that one has a solid sculpt for the blanket roll. The other one actually has a actual blanket roll and the foot pegs are actually positionable, so when you put those Scout bikers on it, or the biker Scout on it, you can actually put them on the footrests as well a little bit better. So it's not too bad, the new one. It's a little underscaled, as is a lot of the Hasbro stuff. They seem to completely reduce scale. I'm just going to move it out of the way because it's taking up most of the screen. So I'll just move the other one back in, bring Vader back in. But overall, it's not a bad set. Just for the biker Scout, if you could find a biker Scout on its own, the Endor one, probably would recommend that a bit over the hoth one. It is a little bit bare in paint apps. It does have a few scoring marks as well on the front, which is weird because it only has it on one side of the front panel. So if you look at the front here, it has it here, but if I flip it around the opposite side, it's actually completely clean. So it's a bit weird that way. But overall, it's not a bad set, and if you can pick it up, I do recommend picking it up. The older ones, the more kind of the bigger Scout bike, goes for insane prices these days, whereas this one shouldn't be too expensive if you can find it on the secondary market. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video review, and as I say, my videos, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe and help my channel grow. Cheers, guys.